All right, so thanks for coming. In this presentation I would like to share my newcomer's perspective on holacracy. Who of you is familiar with holacracy? So that's like, wow, that's more than half of you, so that's awesome. Who is here to better understand holacracy? I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about that. So my goal is really not to teach you holacracy. In those 15 minutes I would like to share my personal experience, and hopefully that will be of advice for you. But if you're looking forward to really understand, to learn holacracy, I don't think this session is for you. So what I'd like to talk about is why I joined a holacratic company. What were my first impressions, what worked well, what I think can be improved, and how each of you can get started with holacracy. So who is already in a holacratic company? One, that's my colleague, Sasha. It's maybe a new thing, but I think it's quite trendy, and a lot of companies try to be more self-organized. And at Unic we adopted holacracy in the last 2 years. So we got that overview. Just to have like a quick idea, our company is organized in circles. So you can see, for example, there's a circle for Germany, but there's also global circles like marketing, culture, identity, corporate services. And then the filled bubbles, those are roles that are filled in those circles. So the idea is really that the organization is organic, and that you can fill different roles in different circles regardless of any position. So we don't have any fixed positions anymore. That's an idea, and in order to self-organize, a couple of parameters are there, and all these parameters, they are provided by the holacracy system. But there's also sociocracy, for example, that's more like an open source self-organizing system if you're interested in that. For me, so why did I join a holacratic company? Well, my journey started being a developer in very small agencies and being a tech lead and a manager at an agency with entirely like 50 people. And then I figured out that management is not really what I want to do, because I don't feel like I should take decisions for others, or that's something I struggle with. So in the end I decided to be a consultant, so I can give opinion, because I want to give opinions to a lot of things, but to really execute and take the decisions, I think people should be empowered to do that themselves. So really the agile mindset is something that's really important to me. And I have one issue here with my slides. Just need to find my cursor. Okay.
We can see it there, but we can see it.
Can you see it here? Okay. Because I cannot see it on my screen. Ah, yeah, that's great. So, sorry for that.
Oh.
Yeah, new company, new tools, right? Let's try again. You can see it. I can see it now. All right, cool. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to get out of the strict hierarchies and work in a more fluid, self-organized organization. Coming from a background being a Scrum Master in different teams and establishing Scrum on the development level, I wanted to be at an organization that really is agile at all levels. So in order to be also contributing on different levels, not just on the team level, but throughout the company as an individual. Also like work on the strategy without being a management member, for example. And I felt like, well, holacracy kind of supports that vision. So I joined Unic in January, so the experience I can share is it's like 2 months plus. And my first impression was like, whoa, shit, nobody tells me what to do. And it's really different because, well, you can ask people what to do, and obviously in the company we support each other, but we really want people to be self-organized and take the decisions themselves. Holacracy is also quite technical, so the process is, while it allows for everything, there's also some rules that have to be strictly followed. For example, in the meetings, and the Holacracy constitution is quite technical to read. So for me, that's a good thing, because I like technical reading, but maybe that's not for everyone. And you can act from different roles. So it's not really that you act from your person or from your position, but from the role that you take on in a different context. So I could be in the role as an agile coach and would vote for things to do like this, or would just execute things to do like this. But in another situation, I would be like the technology strategist. So I think that's really interesting, that you can act from different roles regardless of your person. While we are an agile organization, we don't do everything agile. So for example, the delivery process, how the projects get executed, is often a waterfall system or a mix of agile and waterfall. But yeah, that's up to the organization to decide, or to the people to decide. So there's little global standards in the organization. You can enforce global standards with policies, and you can restrict things with domains. That's like 2 things in Holacracy. But usually you want to optimize for cross-pollination over standardization from Spotify, so that teams inspire each other how to do things, but there's not like a global standard that would require like approval processes that take months to change the standards. So, but we hear people asking for standards in our company regularly, because it can also be like frustrating if there's not a standard and everyone works like differently. And not everything is documented, so in the meetings we can take decisions really fast, but something that was interesting is that the results don't need to be documented. It's just like, well, do you need more information? Do you know how to proceed? We don't need to write everything down, which is kind of interesting. So what worked well so far? So I think it's really transparent. We have a tool, it's called HolaSpirit, that visualizes the entire structure of the company, and that visualizes all the meetings, that visualizes who has which accountabilities in which roles. So the system is really transparent, and that helps everyone to know what people are working on, what are the priorities. So I really like that. I also think the meetings are super efficient, because we don't have to agree all the time. It's more like, so we ask for consent, is there like a big problem that might be caused by the actions that I do, then we need to address that in the process. But otherwise, people can just take decisions for themselves, which is awesome. I was already able to create additional roles through a process called the governance process. So that's how you can change the structure of the company. So that felt like in the beginning a little bit intimidating, because I was like, well, I'm not sure if people will be convinced, or there will be like big discussions. But in the end, it felt really good that already in the beginning I was able to kind of shape the structure of our team. So taking decisions feels like really fast, and I think it's super cool that people can take on different roles in different teams, and that also allows the organization to change. Just in the last 2 months, also 2 roles have been removed because we didn't see a need for them anymore. So that feels like super good. On the other hand, what can be improved? So when I look at how we are self-organizing at Unic, I think, interestingly, Holacracy doesn't really account for classic team communication needs. So let's say in the tactical meetings, we can raise tensions, and that's already a really good thing, because attention is something that you want to bring up and that you want to give to the team to, let's see how we can deal with that. But the regular, like daily stand-ups, retrospectives, that's not really accounted for in Holacracy. So we have just established like a training for feedback in the company that works really well. But the communication aspects are not really primarily covered by Holacracy. Our implementation has a centrally steered budgeting, so that means there's like a global circle that distributes the budget, like how many FTEs, like how many full-time employee days a circle gets, and that's like a very centrally steered thing that the circles cannot decide for themselves to grow. They need to ask for permission to grow, basically. And also when, like in my role in recruiting additional people, when I want to kind of like change which roles to recruit for, I kind of need to get the approval from let's say upper circle, which kind of maps to upper management in the traditional context. So that feels a little bit not so self-organized yet. Also, Holacracy doesn't tell you how to deal with salaries. So we have a very good salary system in the sense that the salaries are clearly defined per role and the knowledge level, but the salaries are still not transparent. So we don't really know what others get, and I think to even be more transparent and to be more trusting to each other, I think it would be cool to have transparent salaries. And what's interesting is we have different circles. Some of the circles are very client-focused, and then they are very, let's say, cross-functional, because we work for big clients, and then we can have like all the disciplines working together for those clients. But then also we have like silos, so there's like a front-end circle and a project management circle and technology circles. And then for those projects you need like so many circles working together, and so the silos still exist from my point of view. Well, if you're interested in Holacracy getting started, so Holacracy is like a complete system, so I think you can take some stuff out, but if you want to take stuff out, maybe it's more interesting to look at sociocratic. For getting started, I think all these agile organization tools, they are really helpful also for smaller teams. Maybe the Holacracy system isn't for the smallest companies because it's also licensed and you get the coaches and everything. But the tools, I think, are really valuable to any team starting 2 or 3 people. Holacracy.org has extensive training materials, and you can also read the Holacracy Constitution, which is basically so at Unic, the founders or the owners of the company at one point signed the constitution. Like we as a company now all operate on a new system, Holacracy, and give away basically most of our rights. Still you have to do some legal mapping in different countries, and we even recently did the ISO 9001 certification, so we know a lot about how legal stuff can be mapped to the self-organizing new way of working. And then you can also ask other agencies. So for example, in our field, we from Unic have a team that provides Holacracy coaching, trainings, education, but there's also other providers on the market, certainly, that provide Holacracy training. Yes. That was like a very quick run through of my first experiences. Let's check the time. See the time. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and if there's any questions. You can reach me Tasio on Twitter or Josef Dabernig at unic.com. And when is the session over?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? So 5 minutes for questions.
Do you think transitioning to Holacracy can be implemented?
I think it's really hard. So it's because it's like a system change. The increments, I think, need to start from the top as well. So if you can have let's say a holacratic team, but then there will be the interface problems. It's the same when you work in Scrum just in the team, but the client is not working agile with you. If if there's managers telling the self-organizing team what to do, then it will be difficult. So, but I don't have so much experience to really fully answer your question. But my feeling is that it's a systematic change that needs a big commitment on all levels. That makes sense.
And if we had to start it, like you're suggesting we start from the top, because it's more of a culture change.
Let's say it's not only from the top, but the top has to be a big partner in the decision, and I think it has to be executed on all levels so that the transition also kind of feels right. Because if one team has been transitioned and the other hasn't, I'm assuming it will be a little bit difficult.
Thank you.
Sure.
So in this setup, every single person belongs exactly to one circle, or do you have people who belong in multiple circles?
So we have people that work from multiple circles, but we usually consider one circle our Heimatkreis, like our home circle. That's usually the circle where we have the most. So people get energized for their roles. So let's say I have 40% as a consultant and 30% as an HR coach, and that sums up to the work. Yes. Sure.
Do you have responsibilities because of belonging to a circle, like certain tasks or responsibilities to do?
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe if we can, let's say, if I look at my roles, so that's cannot see that. So I can see that I have different roles, and each of those, where's the mouse? Sorry. Let's say, as an agile coach, it's not a responsibility, but it's an accountability. So anyone can do that, unless it's a domain. That means no. So, for example, the Twitter social account is a domain because we don't want everyone to just send tweets. That's something that we restrict. But everyone could act as an agile coach. My accountability is that we do agile coaching, if that makes sense. And so the circles, they have a purpose, and they also have accountabilities. So that's basically how it works. So we always want to work together on a purpose, and then the accountabilities define what people can expect from us, and if they can raise tensions, if we don't, if things are not aligned with their expectations regarding our accountabilities and our purpose. And also the purpose flows obviously from the top, so the purpose needs to be aligned. We cannot have a circle that totally works against the company purpose. That wouldn't make sense. Yes. And so here's an example. If I want to do something as an agile coach, then there's a couple of checks that I should not interfere with certain domains. Let's say the lead link is solely responsible for assigning roles in the circle. So that I cannot do, but I can do everything else. Yeah. Cool. I think we're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.